Hi, can you see me? All right. Okay. So
Yeah.
uh, I welcome everyone. And my name is Mancho. I'm a professor in KDI School of Public Policy and Management. And from this January this year, I have been serving as chairperson of IAFICO. IAFICO is International Academic Organization standing for the International Academy of Financial Consumers. We go with IAFICO. And today we organize a online seminar. The topic is financial education in the era of digital transformation. And let me say a few words as to why we put together this online seminar. Uh, our organization, the main focus is on doing a research about various academic and policy issues related to financial consumers, and in designing a policy framework for financial consumers. The financial education is a very important instrument in the demand side. So given that, throughout the seminar today, we want to pose a question what should be the right structure of a financial education program in terms of its objective, contents, and delivery method. That is pedagogy of the financial education, as well as what can we learn from the experience of other countries in terms of offering this financial education program. And in fact, we have two keynote speakers, three paper presenters, and five panel discussants. And those people represent 7 different countries. So by sharing the academic findings and experience, we hope we can learn each other throughout this seminar. Then one more point I like to emphasize as a motivation of this seminar is how should financial education program should respond to the ongoing global trend of digital transformation, which I believe is a common phenomena, both in developing countries as well as developed countries. So with that short remark, I want to turn it over to the moderator of today's seminar, Ms. Yu Kyung-ho. Yu Kyung-ho is a lawyer by profession, and she has been an active member of this organization from the beginning. So Ms. Ho, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. My name is Yu Kyung-ho. As Professor Jo introduced, I am a Korean attorney specializing on financial consumer issues. It is my pleasure today to be the moderator for IAFICO's conference on financial education in the era of digital transformation. Thank you all.
Can you be a little louder, please?
Okay.
A little louder, please.
Sure. So thank you, everybody, for coming and dialing in and joining us today. So we are all very concerned about the importance and impacts of financial education, especially in this era of COVID-19, where everything, even this conference, is done in a non-contact manner, and where digital transactions in the financial services has become an indispensable feature of everyday life. For today's conference, as Professor Jo briefly mentioned, first we would like to invite two very eminent keynote speakers that will present their speeches on the topic of financial education. So our first keynote speaker is Professor Hongju Jung of Sungkyunkwan University. Professor Jung is the founding chairman of our International Academy of Financial Consumers. He thankfully has served 5 full years, during which this academy has made great progress. May I invite Professor Jung to deliver his speech on financial education in the era of digital transformation. Professor Jung, it is an honor to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Mrs. Saw, for your nice introduction. And it's my great pleasure to be here. Since being invited by Professor Cho as a keynote speaker, I prepared this manuscript for this presentation as a keynote speech. So the title is same as the conference title. And as we are all aware, the financial education or financial literacy is a global agenda since the financial crisis in 2008. And digital transformation, as well as the aging society in global world, becomes the very challenging environmental change for the financial system in the economic world. And financial education in global society now faces the opportunities and threat provided by the economic instability sampled by the financial crisis, the technological change of digitalization, and the social change of the aging. So I feel very honored to share my knowledge and my recent teaching experience with you today in that important agenda. I have 40 slides in the 10 minutes, so I'm gonna speed up, okay? As much as I can. First title, my presentation has 4 parts: financial education in general, and the financial consumer education, and university college education in digitalization, followed by a little summary. Traditional financial education usually cover several components of the financial system, such as principles, product, law and regulation, and the financial institution, consumers, market mechanism, and so on. Nevertheless, its content and the levels and delivery method can be shaped by who are the students, the where and why they learn finance. Thus, consumer education may be different from bank employee training program or college student education. For instance, according to the OECD and INFE 2019, rationales for financial education are so diverse to include financial mis-selling, fraud, financial literacy need, complexity of product, over-indebtedness, spread of digital financial services, institutional reform, such as pension, financial inclusion, lack of trust in most countries. Having said that, I'm moving on to the next topic, so financial education for consumer and for college students. Now, let me talk about financial education for consumers in digitalization using some recent literature review. Obviously, digital transformation of financial system gives consumers a bunch of new opportunities and threats in every respect of financial system. In particular, consumers can enjoy benefits of financial digitalization, such as easy access, diverse choices, lower prices, more convenience, and customization and global opportunities. On the other hand, due to the financial digitalization, consumers are subject to such threat or risk as fraud, complexity of use or abuse, little protection or even exclusion, overcharge or overconsumption of financial products and services, unequal protection of privacy infringement. In addition, gender gap in terms of the financial inclusion has not narrowed, particularly in developing countries, according to the World Bank. While various initiatives are going on in developed countries in order to adapt the new opportunity for financial digitalization, as the digital financial literacy is becoming an important education in digital transformation, which is today's agenda. Both digital literacy and financial literacy have a special weakness with the aged cohort population, while many developed and underdeveloped countries are facing the same aging problem. When it comes to technological changes and educational content in finance, we have to consider changes of business model, laws and regulation, staying between the two changes. And many countries are now looking at the sequential changes of technological infrastructure, business model, payers, and their right and the duties, which should be carried over to change of content in financial education. Korea is not an exception. It has a new financial consumer protection law now, enacted early 2020, some months ago, which introduced unified principles and rules to apply all the financial products and services, including suitability principle, disclosure requirement, duty and right of financial advisors and consumers, etc. In Korea, sequential change of technology, business model, law, and education are also affected by external factors such as COVID-19 pandemic, economic downturn, or recession, or business restructuring demand to reduce number of employees, aging society and politics, and even academic politics as well in reality. But the bottom line for financial consumer education is that it should include education of new products and services, awareness of digital risk, how to control digital risk, and consumer right and readiness procedure, in addition to traditional financial theory. And when it comes to process of education strategy and program, OECD advises stakeholders to develop recognition, cooperation, roadmap, guidance, and cooperation, and so on. Now, let's turn to the topic of university education in digitalization. Here, I would share my own recent experience of class teaching with the simulation software. As I mentioned before, traditional education of finance should reflect recent changes of financial market and their external environment in various ways. Korea also experienced gender divide in digitalization to some degree. Men uses digitalization more than women overall in Korea. There is some explanation over the gender divide with respect to brain system and mass capacity in Korea. As to insurance education, digitalization is going on at some universities. For instance, the Illinois State University in US runs a simulation-based course in order to apply knowledge in real-world situation, to teach this decision-making rather than knowledge of acquisition, to provide holistic understanding to enhance student engagement, to improve learning, retention, and so on. Following this innovation, I could offer the software to my undergraduate student last semester. The slide shows the simulation software developed by a UK vendor, who was so generous to offer this software of trial version for free to my student, which was a bit complicated to my student who ran it for 3 weeks in a row. And I asked the student to make a note of their experience before and after first, second, third weeks of exercise at the later part of semester, with one bonus point as a token of my appreciation of their report with this format. As a result of their report, I can summarize their opinions with the simulation learning in terms of curiosity, motivation, confidence, difficulty, fun, knowledge, attitude, behavior. Students showed improvement in all the aspects over week, except difficulty, which remains stable. Confidence was the aspect with the highest improvement, from 2.9 to 4.8 out of 7-point scale. Knowledge, attitude, functional capacity has also improved a bit. The valuation of the simulation went from 4.3 before the exercise to 5.8 after 3 weeks. More interesting is the gender difference. Female students gave less points than male beforehand, but more points afterward, resulting in reversal of valuation before and after. In curiosity, motivation, in confidence, in spite of large difficulty in every time frame, females got more fun and new knowledge, new attitude and skill after the 3 weeks than males. Their valuation went up from 4 to about 6, while males from about 4.9 to 5.7. Thus, 2-point increase versus 0.8 point difference. This is the bright side of digitalization of finance education, a digital divide or in gender divide on top of the general improvement of education. Now I'm summarizing my speech as follows. Diversity of financial education is now facing a new opportunity and threats given by environmental changes of the economy, society, and technology. Digital financial literacy is getting more importance for the aged consumer population, which lacks in both digital literacy and financial literacy. Financial education based upon new technology provide a new opportunity to lecturers and students in university. That is all for my speech today. Thanks for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Jung, for your very interesting speech. I'm sure that Sungkyunkwan University is ahead of the curve in delivering in the digitalization of university education in this COVID crisis. As our next speaker is Professor Brenda Coode of University of Georgia. She has authored very numerous papers on financial literacy and financial education, and she has also received very numerous awards in recognition of her hard work in this area. So may I invite Professor Coode to deliver her speech on financial education in the US. Professor Coode, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Brenda Coode, a professor in the Department of Financial Planning, Housing, and Consumer Economics at the University of Georgia. I have spent most of my career teaching financial education, developing curriculum to teach financial education, and advising others with a similar objective, conducting research to evaluate the outcomes of financial education, and working with others with similar objectives, as well as my graduate students who share my interests. I very much enjoyed putting together this presentation, and I hope you find it interesting as well. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I hope at some point in the future, when you're meeting in person, I'll be able to join you again. I've been asked to talk about financial education in the U.S. My goals with this brief organization are to describe financial education in educational settings, as well as in the public and private sector, and to briefly identify some challenges that we still face. This picture of an interstate in a rural area is what I wish financial education in the U.S. looks like today. It would be great if we had clear consensus about what financial education is, what we're intending to teach, what our objectives are, with some appropriate deviations from these central themes for specific audiences or specific circumstances. Instead, I think this is descriptive of financial education, with little clear consensus about what it is, what our desired outcomes are, and how to go about measuring those outcomes to determine what we're trying to achieve. There probably is a bit more consensus about financial education in our public school settings, but financial education is offered in a variety of different educational settings in the U.S. The Council for Economic Education produces a report every 2 years, and in their 2020 report, they indicated that 21 of the 50 U.S. states, plus the District of Columbia, now require high school students to take a course in personal finance. That's a net increase of 4 states over the previous report from 2 years ago. I think if you looked at this, then you would get the idea that we're doing a great job of teaching personal finance in our public school settings. But in fact, I would argue that in K through 12, the lesson or the conclusion is less clear. And I'll use as an example my state, Georgia, that has state standards that are frequently praised. Our state standards for K through 12 public school students include personal finance throughout the grades. Our high school students are required to take a semester of economics. Personal finance must be 1/5 of that content, and it must be represented on the required end of the course test. So you would probably conclude that students who graduate from high school in Georgia have learned at least some personal finance in schools. But in fact, I estimate that as many as 1/3 of the children in Georgia have never experienced this education because they were homeschooled, in advanced placement economics, or in private schools. And this doesn't even consider that up to 7% of children in Georgia drop out before they ever reach high school. We don't know very much about personal finance education in colleges and universities, although the U.S. Financial Literacy and Education Commission has recommended that such instruction be mandatory. Research that I and my students have done has clearly demonstrated that financial education is present in many colleges and universities, but the approaches are quite varied. Financial education is alive and well in the U.S. public sector. This is important for many reasons, but largely because we know K through 12 education cannot adequately address many of the important decisions that we make in adulthood. We also know that just-in-time education is more likely to stick. We're more likely to use and retain knowledge gained in relation to important financial decisions, and we're more likely to make important financial decisions once we leave school than as children. Just to highlight a few examples of activities in the U.S. in the public sector, Junior Achievement is quite an old organization, but they now have a strong financial education mission. Invest in Girls is a relatively new organization, Its mission is, quote, to usher in the first generation of financially literate girls and change the way girls interact with money, end quote. Their approach includes a curriculum, time with role models who work in financial services, and visits to financial services firms. America Saves, from the Consumer Federation of America, is unique in that its goal is changing attitudes, not knowledge. This social marketing campaign's goal is to encourage low to moderate income households to save, reduce debt, and build wealth. My Classroom Economy is one of many programs created to provide learning activities for use in schools. We have a number of programs that are targeted to specific audiences that are deemed at risk. The National Foundation for Financial Education offers Cash Course for use with college students. Retire Friday is a financial education initiative designed to improve opportunities for Hispanics to build wealth for retirement. There are financial education programs for prisoners. North Dakota offers financial literacy courses in all 5 of its state's prisons. Other programs have been created to provide financial education to survivors of domestic abuse and human trafficking, for the disabled, and for homeless populations. Financial education is also found in U.S. workplaces, by one estimate in more than 1/2 of U.S. organizations. Financial education also is widely present in the private sector. Many financial services firms in the U.S. are engaged in financial education, often producing curriculums such as hands-on banking from Wells Fargo and practical money skills from Visa. Both EverFi and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants have created popular financial education materials that are largely available online. Entrepreneurs have entered the financial education arena as well. The Khan Academy teaches a variety of topics, including personal finance concepts, using video instruction that incorporates a digital whiteboard. Gamification is becoming popular in financial education, with games designed to teach different concepts, including debt management, retirement planning, and saving. Both state and federal agencies are involved in financial education in the U.S. At the federal level, the U.S. Financial Literacy and Education Commission brings together the 20 federal agencies that engage in some way with financial education. The U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also has a unique financial education mission related to consumers' use of financial products. While there's not much published information about financial education efforts in state governments, a Google search confirms that state treasurers often are involved. Some states, including Wisconsin, have state councils to coordinate financial education activity, and many public libraries have been involved in financial education. The U.S. approach to financial education is far from perfect. We don't have consensus about what we're trying to teach, much less what the desired outcomes are. Resources to evaluate program outcomes are scarce, and I don't just mean money. We need more individuals with expertise and greater consensus about reliable ways to measure outcomes. Educational materials often are not keeping pace with the changing market. For example, it's much easier to find education materials about checks and credit cards than about debit cards and mobile payment systems, even though we know the latter are popular among young adults. Some topics are overrepresented, topics such as credit, because well-funded financial services firms with incentives to broaden their customer base have produced educational materials focusing on these topics. Other equally important topics, such as insurance, are underrepresented in our financial education materials. A brilliant presentation would end with a clear plan to tackle these challenges. I don't have that for you today, but I do think that solutions must come from coalitions made up of each of the sectors engaged in financial education. And my personal hope would be that the solutions would be characterized by coordination, not competition, and specialization in, for example, funding, curriculum development, expertise in current market trends, evaluation, and research. Thank you very much for the opportunity to prepare this presentation for you, and I hope to engage in conversation with you via email in the future.